So I wanted to run through a quick example of some of the difference between average returns or annualized returns and compounded returns, because I think this is an item that gets mixed up quite a bit. There's not a good understanding of the difference between the two. So average return, and there's some examples here, but average return is basically if you look at a prospectus or an investment fact sheet, or you go online and you look at a return scenario and they show the average annualized returns. That's one component. And the other return numbers are compounded returns. Compounded returns take into effect actual dollars, or take into an account actual dollars. So we'll go through a quick scenario. These are just hypotheticals. These aren't actual investment returns on any portfolios, nor are they guaranteed. But we just want to walk through this as an example. So here are average annualized returns for these three portfolios, portfolio 1, 2, and 3. And if I ask an investor, which one of these annualized returns do you want over the 5-year period? Most people, without knowing any other information, without cheating and looking ahead, most investors are going to say, I want that one right there. That average annualized return had in year 1 a 35% return, year 2 a 17% return, year 3 it lost 40%, year 4 it had an 18% return, in year 5 it had a 10%, but it averaged 8% annualized. But here's one that did 15, 10, minus 10, 9, and 7, and only did a 6.2% return. And then the one above had a 25% decline in year 3, but had a 7% average annualized return. That's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is actual compounded return of a net sum of money. So in these next scenarios, we're looking at compound returns. Now, these scenarios are the same. Scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. We invest $100,000 in each one of those. Scenario 1 is up here. So in scenario 1, we start with $100,000. Year 3, the market goes down 25%, so our investment drops that year. Year 4, year 5. So on this scenario that had an annualized return of 7%, you actually ended up with $130,000 on your investment. Scenario 3 that had the best annualized return, but had this volatility, this really bad declining year here, actually when you look at compounded returns and you look at dollars invested, it actually had the worst outcome in dollars. You started at $100,000 just like in the other 3 scenarios, but because of the hit it took in year 3, you went from $157 of dollars to $94. By the time you made that up in the next 2 years, your ending balance was $123,000. So the actual average annualized return, because of the volatility of this 3rd year, actually netted you the least dollars earned of all scenarios. So it's really important, and I'd be glad to go over this with anyone because I know it's a lot of numbers. Bottom line, it's really important to remember that it's not just about what's printed in a prospectus or printed in a catalog of returns. It's how did this return happen? How did this 8% annualized return happen? It happened on the back of a huge declining year, which adversely affected your dollars and made it very hard to catch up. So sometimes it's like the tortoise and the hare. Sometimes it pays to be the tortoise, to be a patient investor and to minimize to the extent that you can that volatility in those down years, which can help you make the same return, maybe even a potentially higher return, without having to live through these years.